questions for you regarding SEO. If you're an entrepreneur starting your business, what are some good advice you could give them in terms of growth?
So if you want to grow your own SEO, if that's what you mean, focus on content and brand, meaning build like a strong brand. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you search for Chris Walker, you're going to find a musician from the 90s. So make sure that you build your own brand to where people can find you. And it doesn't have to be your personal name, although I do recommend you have a personal brand. But build either your company name or your brand name and tie it to whatever it is that you offer. So that's kind of that. If you mean offering it to other people, then you just have to get good at it, basically.
Oh, what are some ways that you can stand out in such a busy marketplace? Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. On today's podcast, we have Chris Walker with us, and Chris is going to share some valuable insights in entrepreneurship, a little bit about what he does. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, Chris, what we like to start off with is tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and how you got into entrepreneurship.
Sure. So again, thanks for having me. My name is Chris M. Walker. I have the M there because there was a one-hit wonder in the 90s named Chris Walker. So if you search for Chris Walker, you're going to find him and not me. So I had to find a way to make myself stand out. It's a little anecdote I always like to start with. But I guess the best place to start would be 2013 or so. I was working as a level 1 tech support for a real estate development company, basically the person that you call when you forget your password or something like that. And I didn't really care for that very much. I didn't like the way I was being treated. I wasn't making enough money to cover some of the debt that I had at the time, which looking back wasn't all that much, but it's felt like it at the time. So I was looking for ways to just make some extra money, and I stumbled on this blog post about something called affiliate marketing, which is, if your audience doesn't know, is where basically you promote other people's products or services and you get a commission on it. And the way I was taught to do it, or I learned to do it, was through search engine optimization, SEO. So I started doing a little bit of that, and I made like a website that was about like streaming services and devices and things like that. And you would just get like Amazon commissions from them. And that did pretty well. And I didn't realize what I was doing was called search engine optimization at the time, but it was. And I was doing pretty well until later that year, a Google algorithm update came out that made me lose all my ranking. But and then therefore all my money. By that point, I had kind of gotten hooked on this whole making money through not your job type of thing. So I bought a course and I started learning how to do search engine optimization for clients. So if you have a local business, a plumber, a dentist, whatever, wedding planner, they would pay you to do do SEO for them and make them show up higher in Google search. So I started doing some of that and doing okay. I still had my job at this point. So whenever I would get like a client call, I would have to like go in the bathroom or something to take the call because I wasn't supposed to be doing that while I was at work. But anyway, I did that and I started doing okay with that. And then this website came out from the same person that put out the course that was a marketplace similar to like Fiverr, but it was specifically for SEO services. And on a whim, I listed a service on there, just thinking, nothing would ever come of it. But one day I was at the gym and I was on the elliptical and I got a PayPal notification and I was like, what the heck is this? So I looked into it and I made a sale on that site. And then I made another one and another one and another one. And then an influencer endorsed my services on that site and I got a bunch of sales. And so after a while between that and the client SEO and a few other odds and ends, I was able to quit and go work on my own, with the sole goal being of being able to make as much as I was making at my job, but on my own. So the logic being I was already getting by, so there's that. But I didn't really have any aspirations beyond that. Well, after about a year, maybe less of that, that website that I was using to make my money was started being unreliable. It would crash, it would get hacked, things like that. So fortunately I had built up an audience of my customers into like a Facebook group. So I started selling services through my own website as opposed to through that website, that site that I had been using. And that started going well. And I'd made friends with some of the other freelancers on that site, and they were like, well, can we start selling stuff through your site too? And I was like, okay, sure. And I was like, maybe I'm onto something here. So I'd been proposed the idea of making my own marketplace before. I never really did it. I like never gave it much consideration. I thought it was like too big of a thing, but that made me think there was an opportunity there. So what I did was partner with one of my customers from the other site, and we're up to about late 2017, early 2018 now, who was a developer, and he and I partnered and launched Legit, which is where the business I'm running now. And at that point, it was just going to be like an extra product for my SEO business. But within the first month, it was by far my biggest income source and biggest earner. And it has grown tremendously every month ever since. It's been 7.5 years or so. So that kind of brings us, I guess that brings us to now, basically. I mean, there's other things along the road, but that's about 8 years and 3 minutes. So
I love it. 8 years in 3 minutes. Okay, well, tell me the ups and downs of being in this business. So now you have Legit. You're 7 years in. What does that look like? Because the original portion of the story was how you got there, right?
Sure.
Now that you're here, is it easy? What does it look like?
Sure. So like I said, originally it was just going to be an extra product for my other business, but quickly it became its own business, which I did not predict and therefore did not plan or wasn't prepared for. And there have been a lot of challenges in that for sure. The first one was the chicken and the egg problem. And what I mean by that is with a two-way marketplace, you have customers and you have freelancers. I'm trying to get in camera. And like you have to keep a balance of the two, because if you have too many customers and not enough freelancers, they won't find the people that they need, or the people that are there will get overwhelmed and not do as good of a job. If you have too many freelancers for your customers, then they're not all getting enough work and they're unhappy and they don't bother coming back to the site. So you can't just grow one or the other. You have to grow them both and at roughly the same rate. That's a lot harder than it sounds, especially because it's much harder to get customers than it is to get freelancers. But there are other reasons to that too. And other challenges are there's lots of fraud that goes on, or attempted fraud that goes on with a site like ours. We have to spend a lot of time and a lot of brain power and a lot of effort into preventing that and making sure we don't get screwed. What else? There's been marketing is really challenging for something like this, because you have to present the concept to people, get them educated on the concept, teach them what to buy, teach them how the site works, teach them how to, use it effectively, and so on. And then the other problem, the big one I would say, is that since I didn't start this with intention, I never had a real goal with it, at least not in the beginning. And the goal was just to make more money than last month. Which is fine, but after a point, that's going to make you make bad short-term decisions as opposed to good long-term decisions. So we eventually had to decide who we wanted to help and how we were going to go about that. And there was two prongs to that. We wanted to help businesses rather than help everybody. Something like Fiverr tries to appeal to everyone. We wanted to work directly with businesses. And then the type of freelancer we wanted wasn't the type of person looking to make a little side hustle money. We wanted freelancers that were going to do what I did and treat it seriously as a business and turn it into a brand. So we started focusing our efforts around those two things. So that's where we are now. That's what we focus on day to day now. Any decision we make, if we decide to do it or not, is based on if it helps our long-term goal of having every business on earth using our platform.
Oh, all right. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
When you were working as an employee, right, there was pain. Right, you weren't earning enough, you weren't doing what you wanted to do. As an entrepreneur, there's pain. Can you compare and say, hey, listen, this is your major takeaway in terms of starting a business? Like, would you advise someone to do it? It's a two-part question. Okay. Would you advise someone to jump into entrepreneurship knowing what you know now, being on this end, right? And the second part is, if you do, what advice, questions for you regarding SEO? If you're an entrepreneur starting your business, what are some good advice you could give them in terms of growth?
So if you want to grow your own SEO, if that's what you mean, focus on content and brand, meaning build like a strong brand. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you search for Chris Walker, you're going to find a musician from the 90s. So make sure that you build your own brand to where people can find you. And it doesn't have to be your personal name, although I do recommend you have a personal brand. But build either your company name or your brand name and tie it to whatever it is that you offer. So that's kind of that. If you mean offering it to other people, then you just have to get good at it, basically.
Oh, what are some ways that you can stand out in such a busy marketplace? What would you give to them?
So the first question is, and I'm going to smile a little bit on this because in SEO, the answer to every question is it depends. And with this question, it definitely depends. It's not for everyone, but everyone can do it, if that makes sense. So you have to know yourself. Some people aren't going to have the discipline to make sure that they get enough work for themselves. So what I mean by that is, as an employee, you come in and somebody tells you what you need to work on that day or that week or that month or whatever. And you don't actually have to go and find the work. So as an entrepreneur, you are responsible for not only doing the thing that your business does, you're responsible for making sure that you have people that want to pay you to do that thing. So some people aren't going to be either not going to have the discipline or the interest in doing that. You also have to realize that everything is your fault when you're an entrepreneur. Meaning sometimes you have a boss in a job, sometimes you have a boss who makes a bad decision and it leads to something you are responsible for not being possible or whatever. That's not your fault. But in entrepreneurship, even if that's the case, it's still your fault. It's still your problem to fix. So if you're the kind of person who doesn't want any of that, then it's not for you. If you're the kind of person who wants work-life balance, at least in the beginning, it's not for you. That said, I think the way the world is now, there's unlimited ways to start businesses and to take care, to like have the freedom to run your own life. So I think the pain that comes with being an entrepreneur is much better than the pain of being an employee. I say that reluctantly because I have employees, and I don't want to look down on them because they certainly are the reason that we get to do this. And not, like I say, not everyone wants to be one, but if you aren't going to be happy as an employee, you should definitely look into it. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
Right. So basically, it was if you do it, would you recommend someone else?
If you do it, some of the first things I recommend are to not scale your lifestyle with your income. Keep your personal expenses low for as long as you can. There's a tendency that people have, whether it's in a job or as an entrepreneur, that if they make more money, they spend more money. And eventually you should, because what's the point of making more if you're not going to enjoy it a little bit? But just because you start making, $10,000 or $20,000 a month doesn't mean you have to start living like that. You can still live the same way you did before. And the reason I say that is, one, it makes you more secure if, the world goes to shit. If that's part of my language, but if the world goes to crap and, there's a pandemic or something, then you don't have as much of a burden if your business slows. It also allows you to take more risks and invest more in your business. And plus, you're already living that way. There's no reason to scale that up that fast. So that's the biggest one I always tell. And then the other one is based on I don't want to say a mistake, but a thing I didn't do in the beginning, which was have an idea where the business was going. In the beginning, you're just in survival mode. Okay. You have to make enough money to keep the lights on, to make rent, to make payroll, whatever it is. But after a while, that's going to lead to bad decisions, and you need to have a long-term goal that informs the decisions you make to get there, and you'll make better long-term decisions and less bouncing from thing to thing, which will, in the long run, make a better business. So figure out where you want to go with your business and keep your expenses low.
Awesome. And since you're in the SEO game, questions for you regarding SEO. If you're an entrepreneur starting your business, what are some good advice you could give them in terms of growth?
So if you want to grow your own SEO, if that's what you mean, focus on content and brand, meaning build a strong brand. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you search for Chris Walker, you're going to find a musician from the 90s. So make sure that you build your own brand to where people can find you. And it doesn't have to be your personal name, although I do recommend you have a personal brand. But build either your company name or your brand name and tie it to whatever it is that you offer. So that's kind of that. If you mean offering it to other people, then you just have to get good at it, basically.
Oh, what are some ways that you can stand out in such a busy marketplace?
Being unique helps a lot. a lot of times I work with I do consulting work, and I'll talk to like marketing agency owners, and I'll ask them, what makes your agency unique compared to all these, 10 million other ones you could, whatever the number is, that you could work with. And they say, well, we get results. I was like, no, that's not unique. That's the bare minimum. That's like a waiter saying, I bring the food to your table. That's the bare minimum. Everyone has to do that. And to be fair, is bad. There's so many bad agencies. Getting results is unique, but that's not enough. You have to find something specific about you that makes people choose you over somebody else. So, it might be that you work with a particular niche that you know really well, or it might be just that you have clever branding. You have to find something unique, because anybody can literally start an agency at any minute. Like, you don't even have to, there's no legal requirements or anything. So if people have a lot of options, and people have been screwed by a lot of bad agencies, so find a way that makes you unique and dependable. I think would be the thing I would say.
And how have you found that it has changed over the years, being that you started, when SEO was really, everybody was talking about SEO. Now,
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult in some ways, because now if you Google search something, first thing you get is an AI overview. The next thing you get is some ads. And then the next thing you get is like, people also ask. So you're already halfway down the page before you see any websites. That makes it a lot harder to get traffic from search. That doesn't mean that it can't be done. It still works really well in like local. And when I say local, I mean like a type of service plus a location. So Italian restaurant in New York, or plumber in Detroit, or something like that. For that type of thing, it works really, really well still. But if you want to do like publishing, like content, that doesn't really work anymore, at least not through like niche websites. Time was that you could be like a mom blogger or a travel blogger or something like that and make a good living doing that, and just from SEO traffic. And that's just really not feasible anymore. In I think it was late 2022, Google released an update called the Helpful Content Update. And what that ended up doing was removing a lot of those types of sites from search results. And instead, you're going to get Reddit, you're going to get Forbes, you're going to get these high authority sites that you can't compete with as an independent publisher. So that type of model is gone. Now, what's emerging is AI SEO or AEO. There isn't even really an agreed upon like terminology for it yet, but showing up in results in the Chat GPT and in Claude and all the other tools that are coming out is going to be more and more important. And that's where a lot of my focus is right now, is working on getting systems where I can reliably influence those results and therefore show up higher there.
Wow. And what does a typical day look like for you now?
I've gotten to the point where I don't do a lot of things. And what I mean by that is we have staff and I'm the CEO or the whatever, the president, whatever title. We don't really do titles, but I'm the person in charge. So what I do mostly is do meetings, do content, and just make decisions. So I'll wake up and I have a wonderful assistant who tells me what I have to work on that day. And I'll prepare for those meetings, or I will make that content or whatever. But usually I just work from about 9 to like 6 and just do whatever I have to do that day. Like I don't really have a lot of tasks. I think once you get to a certain point, you need to offload as much of that as possible to other people so you can focus on the big picture stuff. So I just make decisions on where we're going to go with the business. And then I talk to the key people about making that happen. And then I do it. And then I'm kind of like the face of the business in a lot of ways. I'm like the analogy I like to use is the Colonel Sanders of the business, because I'm like the face on the sign. And so I make a lot of content, which drives the business as well. So those are the main things I do these days. It's changed a lot because the first few years I had to do everything myself. And I mean, quite literally everything. I didn't make my first hire for my first 2 or 3 years, which was a huge mistake, by the way. But now I've gotten to where if there's something I have to do more than twice, I try to find somebody else that can do it, unless it's like too critical.
Oh, and how has the systems helped you to evolve?
A lot. Like I said, in the beginning, I was doing everything myself, and that's just not sustainable, because one thing we all have in common is we all have 24 hours. And the only way you can't make a great business in just 24 hours a day, but the only way to get more time is to get either better systems or more people or both. And that was a lesson I had to learn the hard way, right? Like I had to learn that I needed more time, and it wasn't the way to get more time wasn't to reduce the amount of things I was doing. It was to increase the amount of things I could get done. And the way to do that was usually through other people more so than systems. They would create their own systems, but it's a lesson that I see a lot of entrepreneurs fail at in the beginning. It's usually because of one or two reasons, or both reasons. The first is I don't want to pay someone because I don't want to lose the money. What you have to realize is that you can't get more money without more time, and you can't get more time without more people. So even if it means cutting into your profit a little bit, in the long term, a good hire will more than pay for itself. And then the other thing is nobody can do it as well as me. A lot of entrepreneurs have that attitude. And in some regards, that's true, because no one's ever going to care as much about your business as you do. But you're also not as special as you think you are. Like there's other people that can do what you do. There's very few things that only one person in the world can do. But even if they can only do it 75% as well as you, that still frees up a lot of time that you can focus on growth or whatever else you need to focus on. So get over the ego that nobody can do it as well as you, and stop being cheap and hire someone to help you.
Oh, talking about hires, how do you hire? What is it like? Do you go by culture or personality? Like what should entrepreneurs do when looking to hire?
Yeah, I've been fortunate in the sense that I've had largely good, I don't even like the term employees, but I guess that's the right word, employees. And a lot of them have come from referrals or things like that. So as far as what I look for, though, is dedication and willingness to do more than they are originally asked to do. Yeah, I mean, culture is kind of a cliche in the entrepreneurship industry, but not that that's an industry, but you know what I mean. But I think it is important. They have to fit in with everyone else. You can be a little too quick to dismiss someone like that, but you can also be a little too quick to forgive someone that's not a fit. But I would rather have that than skill. But that said, you still have to have some skill too, or they have to have some skill too. So enough skill that they can do the job well, are willing to do more than is initially asked of them, and then just to have to just fit in. So it's one of those things where, like, you know it when you see it, but it's kind of hard to tell somebody else how to look for it.
Yeah, because you know exactly what your business is about, what your business feels like. So I guess that would be a good way to go about, saying, hey, listen, your business better than anyone else, Yeah. So that person has to be able to fit into that environment and, get along with everybody else that's loving being there or liking being there.
Yeah. And then, for example, we have a very informal, work environment. It's not an office because it's all remote, but environment. That's great, but that would make some people uncomfortable. Like, some people prefer a formality and a more 1950s style type of business, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's still the corporate setting that works for some people. That's not what we have, but yeah, you have to find people that are willing to fit in that, and vice versa. Like, if one of our people went into like a corporate place, they probably wouldn't fit in either. So it's a matter of finding people that align with how things are, because I get uncomfortable when people are being super formal with me. So,
and do you often switch like positions? So if you hire somebody for one role, do you switch if you find out soon that they're good for another role?
We've promoted from within quite a bit, and I don't know. I guess so. When we have like a gap in something that we need, I look for who we already have that can do it before I look to hire someone else. That hasn't always been the case. Like, sometimes there's just not somebody that's a fit, but I would much rather give someone that already knows the business and has already shown a dedication to it the opportunity to do something more or different, if there's a possibility for it. So we have moved people between roles when it made sense for them and for us and for the business.
Okay, I love it. So that's another good point. Look for opportunities within to grow.
Yeah. Well, because that was one thing I didn't like at my old job, was I could have stayed there and I could have kept doing what I was doing for another 20 years, and which is great in some ways, but the thing is, I would have been doing the same thing I was doing for another 20 years. And, that wasn't enough for me. It would be for some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it wasn't enough. And I want to make sure that one thing that I'm really passionate about with my team is that I don't want any of them to feel the kind of frustrations I felt and when I was in a job. So I try to remember that. I don't know if I've always succeeded, but I do my best.
That's awesome. And what are some of your goals coming up? Because you're now 7 years old, which is impressive for a company, right? So what are some of your long-term goals?
Our long-term goal is to have every business on earth using our platform. Now, that's more aspirational than it is practical, but that's how we make our decisions. That's what we really want, is to have every business on earth be able to use our platform to do whatever they want with their business, grow, scale, maintain, whatever it is. Like, we want to give them the information and the services and the tools to be able to do whatever they want to do. And then the other one is, I have a nonprofit that I just started. I just started it like legally. There's a lot of like red tape to starting a nonprofit in the United States, but I think it's all legally ready just like today. And that is to help teach entrepreneurs. I'm sorry?
I said congrats.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And the goal with that is to teach entrepreneurship to underprivileged, like, young people, because I think that entrepreneurship leads to better lives and more freedom and more innovation in the world. And if somebody had given me that opportunity 25 years sooner than I had it, I'd have made a much bigger impact than I have. So I want to be able to do that, because I think it's very much missing from our education system. And I think that there's a need for that, and it's something I'm passionate about. So those are kind of my two goals right now.
No, there's definitely need for definitely, again, like this podcast, it's a resource for entrepreneurs to be able to find the information, because a lot of us who are in business, we don't know what to do, right? Yeah. And we don't know what the right things are to help us either grow or even just sustain. And when you're in the trenches, you're literally searching for help. So yeah. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, like, they don't tell you that you need to be an LLC versus a corporation versus a sole proprietor. They don't tell you that you have to keep the receipts for all these little things too. But then there's like the more just how to make money. Like, they don't tell you, a lot of people start a business and don't realize that their job isn't the thing that they do. It's to keep the business, get more business into the business. So yeah, I think that there's a need for that, and it's something that I wish I had access to when I was younger. And so.
And did you get mentorship along the way?
It depends on how you look at it. Like, I've bought a lot of courses and a lot of coaching and a lot of training, and then taken in a lot of free content as well. So I didn't have the way, when I picture mentorship, maybe I'm wrong, but I picture it like Kung Fu, where you have like the sensei type of thing. I actually did Kung Fu for several years, so that's why
Oh, nice.
That. So in that sense, no, but I have had a lot of people I learned from, both directly and indirectly. But I think a formal training for that would help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think that's a good point. Like, you can learn from everywhere, right? So it doesn't have to just be in a formal setting, with a mentor sitting there. I think all of these platforms are good,
Yeah, I think that one of the best investments you can make is like an Audible subscription, which is like $15 a month, and you get like 3 books for free. And I've gotten so much just out of that, that's like that. So there's my point to that story is that there's opportunity everywhere. Like, you can go to Books A Million has like a discount book section for like books they're trying to get rid of, where they're like $5. And I've bought so many like biographies and books there that I've learned from for like $5. Like, it's so much better investment than going to a movie or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, because I go to movies too. But yeah, my point is there's unlimited opportunities to learn if you apply yourself, and you don't need to necessarily have the sensei sitting there teaching you how to go about it. But that does help too. It depends on your learning style too. Some people learn better just by watching and learning, or watching and reading and things like that. Other people need to be instructed, and that's where self-awareness comes in, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Agreed. Now, let me ask the question that's been on my mind.
Okay.
boxes behind you. Explain them, please.
Yeah, so these are they're bobbleheads. They're called Funko Pops. It actually ties into what we're talking about a little bit today. Like for the first few years of my business, I let everything else go. I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't have any relationships. I didn't have any friends. I was out of shape. And eventually I was like, this isn't, it worked. Like the businesses did well. But like eventually I realized that there was no me left. So I started realizing I had to take care of my health. And I also decided I needed a hobby and I didn't know what. But one day I was at, what's the video game store? GameStop. And I picked one of these up. I was like, this is kind of neat looking. And I bought it. And I went home and just started looking into what these things were. And I realized there's like thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. And I got in the habit of buying one or two a week. And then I just started putting them behind me. And now when I do video, people always ask about it. So it's good for engagement that way too. But it's just a fun hobby.
That's cool.
I even have one that's like a custom one that's made of me. I don't think you can see it. But
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, all right. So right now, I'm thinking we need something that's going to drive someone from point A to point B. What I mean by that is, if you had to give some advice to someone that's stuck right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would that advice be?
Stuck, like they're trying to grow, or
it can be in any capacity, in any way. But
okay,
if you thought back and you were giving your younger self advice,
okay, you can't get where you want to go doing what got you to where you are. What I mean by that is that if you want to level up, you can't keep doing the same things that got you to the same level. To break through to another level, you're going to have to do something you haven't done before, and that means taking some risk and being uncomfortable. But and nobody likes that. It's our natural instinct to be comfortable. But what you need to realize is when you're uncomfortable, that means that you're growing. Quite literally, like we have the expression "growing pains," because growing is painful. Literally, in the sense that when you're a kid and you grow fast, you get growing pains. But you can't get further if you don't start doing something different. Having said that, you also need to not stop doing what's working. A lot of people realize they need to do something more in order to grow. But what they don't do is keep doing what's working. And I'm saying that from experience because I still do it wrong sometimes. And like, I'll have something that was working really well, and then I just stop. So don't stop doing what's working, but realize that what got you where you are is not going to be what gets you beyond where you are. You're going to have to take some risk, make some changes, do some things different. Like if you want to put it like money labels on it, getting from 0 to 10,000 is probably the hardest part, but the stuff that got you from 0 to 10,000 a month is not going to get you to 100,000 a month. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to do more or different or something like that. So without, each person's scenario is going to be different. So I can't give more specifics, but that would be how you get unstuck, is to do something you're not doing and then do more of what you're doing that is working.
I love it. And here's the thing. They'll know what you mean when they, because they're going to apply that same knowledge to their business. Right. And how did you apply that to your business?
It's actually kind of what I'm doing right now. Like early in the pandemic, we all didn't know what to do. And so I just started doing like daily live streams on my YouTube channel as a way to like stay in touch with my audience and keep them from feeling fear. And I called it like the water cooler because it was like nobody could be around and like just chat with each other. So we did that. And that worked really, really well for my business. I hate to say it, but the pandemic era was a big help to my business. And then like maybe a year ago, I was looking back over my YouTube stats and I was like, I was doing really well in 2020 on YouTube. And I realized I just stopped after a while. And it clicked to me that there were a few other things that I had been doing for a long time. And then I just stopped. So I guess the answer to your question is I just realized it and did more. And then I also, like when we hit certain plateaus, I'm like, we're doing all the same things. Why aren't we progressing? Because we had up until that point. And I'm like, well, because we're doing all the same things and we're not progressing. So we're going to have to do more or different. So I think just when you hit those plateaus, you have to look at first of all, I guess the first one would be, are you truly doing as much of what is working that you can be? Because a lot of times you think you are, but you aren't. So you can do more of what's working and just completely exhaust. If you haven't completely exhausted that, do that. And then if you can honestly say that, then it's time to try something else in order to do it. And you say that people will know what I mean. And I think you're right, because I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we're not doing as much of what's working as we possibly could. So those would be that's how I realized it. And hopefully that helps other people realize it as well.
Yeah. Awesome. You're right. It's an audit of your business, what you're doing, and definitely take note of what's working and expand on that.
Yeah. I think if I could give one summary of what we've talked about today, it would be self-awareness. Because like you have to be aware, if you're like, you asked me who should be an entrepreneur, who shouldn't. You have to be aware of yourself if you're the right type of person to do that. If you want to grow, you have to ask yourself if you're really doing enough of what's working or if you need to do more. So being self-aware, I think, is a trait that we all need a lot of.
I agree. For our listeners out there, can you tell everyone how to find you?
Certainly. If you have a business and you want to do anything with it that you're not currently doing with it, visit us on legit.com with 2 I's, because one wasn't enough. The real reason for that is legit with 1 I is like a $300,000 domain.
Wow.
But so it gives me that catchphrase. But if you want to connect with me personally, I'm active on all platforms, but YouTube and Facebook are the best places to find me. Just search Chris M. Walker and you'll find me there.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for coming on our show today. Thank you for being a guest. It was a pleasure to have you on.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Guys, I will link all of his information in the bottom of it. You'll find it on YouTube. For those listening, head to our YouTube channel to be able to discover more about Chris. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.